teams that made the playoffs, that won't make them, and which teams we expect to replace them.
Yeah, definitely. So in the NFC last year, believe the 1 seed was the Eagles, 2 seed was the 49ers, 3 seed was the Cowboys.
The 3 seed was the Bucks because they won the division.
So they would have to have been the 4 seed. We can get that pulled up.
We'll pull it up here.
Oh, 3 seed was the Vikings. And then 4 seed was the Bucks. 5 seed was the Cowboys. And then we had the Seahawks in there that were the 7 seed and faced off against Seattle. And then the Vikings faced off against the 6 seed in the Giants. So that is the 1 through 6 was able to shake off the cobwebs, pull off the standings last year. So out of the Eagles, 49ers, Vikings, Bucks, Cowboys, Giants, Seahawks, and Giants, we definitely agree on this. The Bucks, no shot. They're getting back to the playoffs.
The division again.
You barely got there with Tom Brady actually having a pretty decent stats years wise. He was pretty decent. He still looked good, but your skill players were injured. You're literally bringing in Mike Wallace for a tryout who hasn't played football in like 5 years. And then you're bringing in kickers to try out for special teams players. So everything in there is just kind of the giant mess right now. Baker, Kyle Trask, we went over it earlier this episode. But for me, my definitive, definitely not making the playoffs is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I have a feeling where you're going to lean next.
Yeah, and a team that barely squeaked into the playoffs and had no business even making the playoffs over a team like the Packers or the Lions, the Giants. What the hell were the Giants doing in the playoffs last year? I mean, good God. A bunch of one-score games, kind of similar to what the Vikings were last year, but a lesser version of them. This is a team that squeaked in, probably should have been the Lions. Had they not had that stupid bye, the tie, they probably wouldn't even have made the playoffs last year. So give me the Giants out of the playoffs. Who wants to see Daniel Jones in the playoffs? I sure as hell don't. So you're talking about a team that could replace them. How about the team that deserved to replace them last year, which is the Detroit Lions? They got way better on defense. They bolstered their running game. I think that Jahmyr Gibbs will be better than DeAndre Swift. And so talking about teams that are going to replace them, I'm picking the Lions to replace the Giants because that's what should have happened in 2022.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the Lions replacing the Giants, but I actually don't think they'll be replacing the Giants because I think the Bears will replace the Giants and the Lions are going to be replacing the Vikings. Last year, all of those close games, not being able to blow anyone out. We cut Dalvin Cook. However, we don't really have a solution at running back besides Alexander Mattison. And what made Minnesota great was having a good 1-2 combo. Went out there, got another great wide receiver, still have TJ Hawkinson on that team, and you still have Justin Jefferson. But I think this year, the Vikings typically have a really good season and then come down to earth a little bit. I think they're going to be fighting in the hunt. Not necessarily going to rule them out of the playoffs, but I definitely think they're going to be fighting their tails off. It's not a lock.
Yeah, so I think the 3 teams that I would pick to miss the playoffs are the Bucks, the Vikings, and the Giants. Now, this is barring injury. I think every other team here, the 49ers, depending on how the quarterback play is, maybe there's a question mark there, but I think their roster around them, they should be able to at least make the wild card. Seahawks, I think, will be back. Eagles absolutely will be back. They're loaded. Cowboys, I think they're a lock as well.
Yeah.
Now, if we went to the AFC, we got KC at 1, Buffalo, Cincinnati, Jacksonville, Chargers, Ravens, and then the 7th seed was the Dolphins. You see any switches up there? Typically, there's 4 to 5 teams that miss the playoffs from the following year. So we already have 3.
Yeah.
So maybe 1 or 2.
Yeah, I could see a scenario where the Chargers miss the playoffs. A lot of drama going on this year. This is a team that's typically riddled with injuries. We did our Chargers video, and they're like, I can't believe you guys picked them at 10-7 because all their players were injured last year. I'm like, well, I picked them to go 10-7 because most of their players are unreliable. They're typically injured every year. So it's like Keenan Allen staying healthy, not realistic. Justin Herbert with Kellen Moore, is that going to help or is it going to force him into more turnovers? Only time will tell. Mike Williams started to get banged up at the end of the year with a knee injury and he wasn't able to play in the playoff game. Defensively, Khalil Mack, another year older. Joey Bosa, I love him, but he's an absolute wild card and a madman on that team. So definitely think the Chargers miss the playoffs because they're not a perennial contender. I know there's a team specifically, though, that you had Stetson Bennett beating in your preview.
Oh, the Ravens.
The
yeah.
Ravens.
Yeah, I think the Ravens are one of the most overhyped teams in the NFL this year. Not because I don't think they'll be good, but you have a team with a lack of weapons. Your number one weapon is Mark Andrews, who's your tight end. And Mark Andrews is great, but he's not to the level of Kelsey or Kittle.
No.
Their defense will be solid, but they were 10-7 last year, and there's a lot of really gritty wins in there. I think that division, you have Cleveland that should be better. You have the Steelers who should be better. You have Cincy who's going to remain to be pretty great as well. So that's a team where they made the playoffs convincingly, but I think that that's a team that could potentially miss out depending on how things end the season. So I think the Ravens and the Chargers are the most likely. I think Jacksonville is pretty safe.
Yeah.
Cincy's pretty safe. Buffalo is an interesting one because I think that they should still make the playoffs, but maybe they don't win the division. They have a lot of talent there.
Yeah, the Buffalo's a team we picked to be the wild card team. I believe I had Miami win the division because of the dynamic duo that they have in their head coach and the addition of Mike White, so having a consistent backup quarterback. So I think Miami can definitely win that division, but with Buffalo, it's like, okay, we have Aaron Rodgers with the Jets now. Okay, how'd it go when we played the Jets? It was two really close games, and one of them you lost to as Zach Wilson as the starter. Red flag there. Patriots still got some close games in. We actually have an offensive mind in Bill O'Brien. So all the divisional games, it's not a gimme in any of them. And I get you kind of own the Patriots now, but you kind of don't at the same time. And this drama kind of looming. I don't even know if there's anything there, but just the fact that there's some buzz of Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen having a little riff, you can't have that. And that's something where you have to have your ship. You have to have your ship tightened up, because if I ever hear Jamar Chase having an issue with Joe Burrow, I'm like, these guys are homies. What the hell is going on? As aloof as Aaron Rodgers or people want to claim he is, I don't really buy what the media says about him. But Devontae Adams never complained about Aaron Rodgers. Tom Brady's receivers never complained about him. And the fact that Josh Allen anointed the chosen one, his best receiver, who's supposed to be his homie that he's playing Fortnite with, is like, there's something there. And that got out to the press. Like, that to me tells like the ship is not tightened up. Like,
no,
the ship is not tightened up at all. And you have teams like Denver, but I could see a case for Buffalo missing the playoffs because you still can't run the football. And your defense got worse. You still lost some key guys on defense. You did pick up some players in the draft, but it could take a year. And I could see the Bills taking a step back this year.
Yeah, and when I say they missed the playoffs, I don't mean they suck, but like, for example, the Steelers were 9-8 last year. They missed the playoffs. The Lions were 9-8 last year. They missed the playoffs. Even if you're 10-7, with an AFC is loaded with not only the Dolphins and the Jets and the Patriots, who deserve some respect too, not only the Browns, who are solid, not only the Steelers, who are perennial playoff contenders, and the Ravens and the Bengals. That's two straight divisions I just named off. And then in the AFC South, you have the Jaguars that are going to be world beaters as well. Plus, even a team like the Titans are always a tough team to play, even if they don't have a lot of talent around them. Mike Vrabel is a great coach. He deserves credit. D'Amico Ryans, I think, is solid. And then in the AFC West, you still have the Chiefs, who own you.
Yeah.
You also have the Chargers, who have a lot of talent on their team, and Denver, who should be better because they can't get much worse than they were last year.
Yeah.
So I just named off pretty much every team in the AFC who could give you some fits to some extent.
There's no easy wins against the AFC team this year because you still have been destroyed by just Jonathan Taylor before. You still have been destroyed by just Derrick Henry before. And like, this is definitely a team that's been flawed and inconsistent. And they're we've compared them to the Cowboys, but Josh Allen just has a lot more talent than Dak Prescott. But he also led the league in total turnovers last year. And what is he going to be?